I'm Jill Ferguson, host of Let's Talk About Love Stories from Everywhere. And I am super excited today to have Laura Browne on the show. Laura and I have worked on numerous books together, and I've known her for, I don't know, it's been probably 25 years-ish.
Probably, yep. Mhm.
So, Laura, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me here, Jill. I am so excited to talk about love because it is one of my favorite topics. Well, I am an author. I'm also a coach, and so I coach people with business issues. And one of the things I love to coach people about is helping them to get higher salaries at work. So those are some of the key things. But I also love not only writing books, but reading books. And so, yeah. So that's just,
What's one of your favorite books you've read?
oh my gosh. Oh, that's so mean, Jill. Um,
Top 5 or 10?
I can't even. Okay, well, I'll tell you. This is going to sound funny. A book I am reading right now. Well, actually, probably one of my favorite books is by Martha Beck, or Jen Sincero. You Are a Badass, because I love,
Mhm.
love books like that and self development books. But I have to admit, I am reading a romance that happens to in a bookstore in Ireland. And I mean, it is it yeah. Oh, they just Ireland bookstore, you got me. And it's written by one of my absolute favorite authors who writes lots of cozy mysteries.
What's
So
her name or his
her
name? I
her
assume it's
name,
a
oh,
her.
it's a her. Her
Yeah.
name is Jen McKinley. And actually
Okay.
she's also in the Phoenix area too. So I am in the Phoenix area, but I love her stuff. And when I started reading the Ireland one, it makes me want to go to Ireland.
So is that next on your list of places to travel?
Actually, it probably is, and the funny part is, because I have, an Irish background, and
Mhm.
so I do have family in Ireland, when I look at the genealogy and I have people that know other people, so, yeah, I think I'm gonna have to start thinking about, planning a trip. That would be fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you coach people with business issues.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit more about that. Like, what's that look like?
Well, so it's funny. So I just started one the other day. Everybody is different. It's typically they're stuck in something. Maybe they started a new job. I help a lot of people when they start a new job, and they're trying to figure out, how do I navigate this, or if they want to move forward and they don't know what's going on. And sometimes it's the companies that engage me, and sometimes it's the people that engage me. And like I just started talking to somebody recently, and she's feeling really stuck. And so we're going to meet and talk about, again, what she wants. And what I really do is I try to help people to take a look at what are the goals that they tell themselves that they want, and really take a look at, yeah, but why? Okay, why do you really want that goal? And so, like, we drill down, because a lot of times what I find is when they say, I want X, they don't really want X, they want something else. And so it's my job to really question. And sometimes I say, hold on, is that really what you want? Or I stop them and say, you know what? Last week you said this. And they're like, oh yeah. So really, what I try to do is help people to see things that are already in their head, but they haven't articulated them. And a lot of times I'll say, tell me more. And just in the tell me more, people are like, oh, oh. Or sometimes I help them to see things. There was somebody else, and after our conversation, she said, I never put those two things together. And now I see my boss doing this and the team doing this, and now it all goes together. So really, I try to help people to do that. And then sometimes I try to help people when they're looking for a new job, figure out how to, I help them practice what to say if they want to either get a salary increase or a new job, when they want to, when you get offered the job, to ask for more money, because
Mhm.
that's so scary. So a lot of times I'll just practice with somebody and we'll sort of go through it. So I do different kinds of coaching depending on what the person needs.
So you just had a book come out recently, like last month, maybe,
Yes, yes.
about something very similar to this. What's
Yeah.
the name of the
So
book and who's the
thank you.
publisher?
Well, so it's called Interview Speak: What Your Interviewer Really Wants to Know. And it's by Manning. So if you go to manning.com, Manning, so the publisher is Manning. And it's available only online right now. And right now we're finishing up the edits. And by this summer, it will be available in paperback through Simon and Schuster. So I'm super excited about that. But what's interesting, again, it's all about how do you interview. And I have sorry, I authored a book with somebody else, Jill.
Mhm.
But so my
Okay.
co-author, Barbara Limmer, and we've known each other, okay, not as long as you and I, Jill, but Barbara and I have known each other for about 20 years because we were in a mom's group together, when we watched our kids grow up. And so she's a career coach. Actually, she's an interview coach. And so she kept seeing a bunch of mistakes, and she and I would talk about it, and I trained people how to interview. And so we thought, you know what? People really need to understand what interviews are really saying. And actually, initially, the book title was Translating Interview Speak. And the idea there was, well, to say, when an interviewer says something like, tell me about yourself, they don't mean spend 10 minutes and tell me about your fifth grade, football team. No, what they want is in a minute, okay, in a minute or less, tell a couple of key things, connect one of them to the job. So if you're really good at being detail oriented, the job has detail orientation, aspects, connect it, and then try to connect with them. So we give really specific things about what the interviewer really wants to hear and why. And so it's really fun. And I'm going to connect it back to love because I think about this and I want people, first of all, to love their jobs. So I remember there was a time in my career, you may remember, that I worked at a company I loved and I worked for a boss I loved for years and years. And I remember saying sometimes, I am so lucky. I have the
Mhm.
best job in the world. Anyway, company changed, boss moved. So it wasn't wonderful anymore. But the point is, I want everybody to have a job they love. But also, when I think about love, one of the key things I think about love, and I'm going to connect it back to one of our books,
Mhm.
is you have to love yourself. And so I was just coaching somebody the other day, and she was telling me, well, I'm having problems at work, and she's talking about her job, and I mean it's toxic. Um, and I'm thinking, you need to leave. But I kept hearing excuses. Well, it's going to get better, and my boss, blah blah blah. And it almost sounded like when you have a bad partner and you make excuses, oh, she'll get better, oh, he didn't mean it. And that's what I was hearing from her. And I finally stopped her and I said, listen, I just want you to, we talked about it, and I said, if a successful guy was in your situation, what do you think he'd do? And she said, oh, he quit. And I just started, and so I started laughing and she started laughing. And I said, okay.
Mhm.
And so she's starting to think about, but again, it came to the point that she was thinking, well, I don't know if I'm good enough to leave. I don't know if I should leave. I don't
Oh
know if it's
boy.
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Especially because she hadn't been at the job very long, but they totally changed the job on her. So when I think about loving yourself, one of the things is love yourself enough to find a job that you really like. And if you don't have that, then love yourself enough to look for another job and have a good place. So to me, love is at home as well
Mhm.
as at work.
Yeah. It is. Well, and it should be all parts of your life, right?
Well,
Like,
it should be. It
yeah,
should be. And I'll come back to that book. But okay, so I'll just say to the audience,
yeah.
you and I wrote two awesome books. So we wrote A Salary Cinderella Story, How to Make More Money Without a Fairy Godmother. And that was about, three friends who
Mhm.
are having problems at work and at home and how they have to love themselves enough to ask for a salary increase. And so we tell the story and we help people to understand. But then we wrote the second book, A Single Cinderella Story, or How to Find Love Without Losing Yourself. And the whole
Mhm.
key there is, the main character wants to date. And so she wants to go out and date and, meet people. But before that, she needs to love herself. Because if you don't love yourself, you're going to get stuck in bad relationships. And so that's what I keep thinking that to me, love is about first loving yourself and then connecting with other people in the right ways.
And I would argue that it's not just you're going to get stuck with in bad
Hmm.
relationships, but it's you're looking for something in somebody where you don't even have it yourself. So it makes it very hard to find somebody that's going to fulfill that need.
That's a really good point. Yeah, because you don't even know what you're looking for
Yeah.
because you haven't really even like looked at yourself or worked on yourself. So yeah,
Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah. So What other? Yeah, usually you have a cat around you, but I
Oh
don't see
my
one
gosh,
right
I
now.
so this is so funny.
Or did
When
you
we
kick them out of the room because
Yes,
you
I
were doing
did.
an interview?
So
Okay.
when you turned on the recording, the door started opening because the cat tried to get in. I'm like, "No, no kidding. No, you cannot come in right now." Yeah, yeah, unfortunately, so I don't understand it. Some people have cats that they never see except at feeding time.
Mhm.
My cats wanna sit on me all the time and want to be on me, and it's just and sometimes it's great, and, one of them likes to sit on the keyboard, and that's not so great. So no,
Because
the
it
cats
really loves you and doesn't want to be apart from you,
they
right?
do well, they love other people too, but yeah, so they really yes, they do love me and they love my daughter and they just want to be with us all the time. So
You're
it's
needy
pretty funny.
cats. They
Yeah,
act
well,
more like dogs.
and
No.
it's funny, I don't know why I seem to get needy cats. Yeah, like
Mhm,
dogs. So friends of mine have dogs and they're like that. They're like, "Pet me, pet me, pet me,
mhm.
spend time with me." Yeah, and it's really cute, but sometimes yeah, it's a little much when I'm trying to be on video.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So what other things are you working on book wise and
Well, let me go back to this
yeah.
book, the interview book, because I want to tell you something funny about it.
Mhm.
So we were writing the book, and we came up with all this stuff, and then
We meaning you
oh, I'm
and a
sorry,
woman
me and
named
Barbara.
Barbara. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my friend Barbara, and so I've written a bunch of books. I've written with you, and I love
Mhm.
writing with you because you're really fun.
Thank you.
And so she just wrote a bunch of stuff. She said, "Okay, I'm done," and I said, "No, it's 80 pages. We are not done with the book. The book is not going to be 80 pages." And so we thought, okay, what can we do? And so we decided, let's put some case studies in there. So we came up with 4 people, and each of the people, like one person is an engineer, one person is in marketing, and so each of the people is asked an interview question and they say their answer, and then we break down what was good about their answer and what could make it better, because there
Mhm.
are a lot of really good answers, and sometimes it just takes a little shift, like saying adding I instead of always using we, or at the end adding the return on investment, like why was it so good, not just and people were happy. It increased sales by
Yeah.
35%. Okay. So
Mhm.
something as simple as that. So we talk about that. So that was fun. So we added that. And then because we work with this wonderful publishing company, Manning Publications, which is a tech company, a tech publishing company, they have reviewers. So before we finished the book, they said we want them to review the book. And so they're reviewing the book. And one of the things, I mean, they really liked it, but one of the things they said was, we want bad examples because we gave good examples and good and get better. I'm like, oh, okay. And so we struggle with that a little bit. And somebody also said we wanted to be we wanted to be personal, we wanted to be funny. So we added some personal stories in there.
Sure.
And so we ended up so we said, okay, we're going to develop a character who is not good at interviewing and who keeps getting only one interview and never gets the second interview. And initially named him Bad Bob. And then I decided, we went through
Oh
a lot
no.
of, yeah, we went through a lot of things, and we decided his name is Clueless Clark. So
Okay.
Clueless Clark goes on interviews, and every single interview he messes up. And we talk about what he messed up and how we should change it. And so that was about halfway through. We got that feedback halfway through the book. We rewrote the book. We added more case studies. We added Clueless Clark and stuff. And then before the book was put online, we had some other reviewers read it. And one of the reviewers, so a couple of the reviewers said, "Oh my gosh, I have interviewed Clueless Clark. You are like spot on."
Oh yeah.
Because Clueless Clark, at one point, he gets in and they say, "Why should we hire you?" And he said, "Because I'm amazing and I'm the best person." And obviously, he thinks that's good and you should be
Mhm.
positive, but not that much. Um, but my favorite comment was somebody that wrote, "I was Clueless Clark. I thought I could just go in and wing it." And he thought, and he wrote,
Oh.
because that was authentic. And I've heard this from so many people. No, 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 I'm not going to prepare. I want to be me. And then he wrote, "I was Clueless Clark. I used to go in and just wing it.
Yeah.
But I've changed and I got a second interview." And I'm like, yes. So anyway, we made a couple of adjustments after the second tier review. But yeah, we basically left it. And so we have Clueless Clark. And then at the end, after we tell all these bad stories about Clueless Clark, we talk about what happens to him when he learns the information. So yeah,
Yes.
so it's really fun. We actually, the other thing that I find really, really fun is we actually have a full interview, like somebody, like the first interview, and the
Mhm.
interviewer interrupts them and says different things, and then we break down what she did well, what she could have done differently. Because again, unless you have been an interviewer, you probably have not seen another interview. And so it really helps to take a look at. Yeah. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. And I just love the fact that the print version will be out sometime soon so I can actually hold it, because I would love to hold it and say, "Hey Jill, here it is," the
Yeah.
way I can with the other book. So yeah, so that's been really, really fun.
Well, and you're let's call it your authority for doing all this, besides the
Mhm.
fact that you coach people and you've
Yeah.
been a corporate trainer for years, is
Yeah.
you have a master's degree in HR,
Yes,
right?
I do. I do. That is absolutely true. And again, I've worked for many, many companies, and I've run training and development for global tech companies. I have
Yeah.
trained people around the world. And one of the things I do love is training people, whether it's, training one-on-one, or, now I train groups of people on communication skills, which is another book
Yeah.
I wrote on. Because what I love is I love seeing sort of the light bulb go off. Like, I had somebody recently, and I could see her, and she's like, "Oh." And
Yeah.
so anytime I get one of those comments like, "Oh, now I get it," it's wonderful. So yeah, so I have a lot of experience, and I've trained plenty of people in interview. And I have my own stories about really bad interviews. I remember one person I didn't put this in the book
Mhm.
because it was too bad. One person I interviewed, and she was terrible. And I can't remember what question. I'm not going to tell you what question it was, but she like went off on some hobby she had, and she's just sort of chatting about some hobby, and I'm thinking, oh no, you are not this. You're, and she's just talking and talking and happy to talk about whatever it was. And I thought, okay, I might be wrong, and I kept going with the interview. And no, she came back to the hobby, and talked about it some more, and she did not get the job. So I have seen really bad people, and I've also seen really, really good
Yeah.
interviews. So I brought that into writing the book also.
Well, concise answers are so important, right?
Well, but you
Yeah.
know what? So I agree with that. But I was interviewed one time for a job, and so I gave concise answers. And I remember the woman interviewing me said, "Do you have anything else?" Because I gave the short
Mhm.
ones, and I said no. And then she asked me another one, and she said, "Anything else?" And I said, "No, no."
And
What I
she
should have
wanted more
She wanted
information.
more.
Yeah.
So what I should have done is I should have given more. But the point is that no matter what we say about interviewers,
Yeah.
there will be somebody different. So for
Yeah.
most interviews, my answers were spot on. But for that interviewer, she
Yeah.
wanted more. And so what I
Well,
should have done is added more.
so that goes back to, you wrote a book a long time ago and you've updated it some recently, called
Yes.
"Why Can't You Communicate Like Me?"
Mhm.
And I made that a textbook in some of the communications courses that I taught, because it's
Oh.
such valuable information to
Mhm.
understand, whether it's somebody at work or whether it's your partner, right?
Mhm.
Do they like high level answers? Do they want a lot of granular details? Do they want a lot of enthusiasm when you're
Mhm.
delivering it? Or do they just want a kind of straightforward answer and,
Mhm.
be done with it? And the people that want the high level answers, generally, if they need more information, they'll come back and ask you for it.
Yep.
But they're just happy having the bullet points, right? And
Mhm.
then there's other people that want all the history of why a decision
Yeah.
should be made, however,
Mhm.
and or has been made in the past. And yeah, and so that also goes for the interviewers. Like, if you can understand how the interviewer is
Mhm.
and what kind of thing they seem to be looking for, or personality they have,
Mhm.
then that's, you know, it's great to talk to people in a way they love, as
Yes.
opposed to a way they're tolerating.
So funny you said, because we didn't address it in this book,
Yeah.
because like, again, I have a whole other book on it, and that's something else we can talk about. And I taught classes using, again, this book, and it's
Mhm.
just so basic. The whole idea is understand how you like to communicate, and understand a couple of basic ways other people like to communicate, and figure out, sort of like language, if somebody else speaks Spanish, learn a couple of words in Spanish and figure it
Mhm.
out. And to me, once I learned this years and years ago, before I wrote about it, I was like, oh my gosh, it's not that that person is annoying or difficult, or whatever. It's they're simply speaking a different language than I am. And if I could just understand some of the language, or if I could just speak in their language, they would listen to me. So yeah, so that I love that book. That one's really, really fun.
Yeah, it is. So, what else are you up to besides books
Oh,
and coaching?
well, Now, so I have a new book I am working on, but it's a mystery because
Mhm.
again, I love books and I love doing different things. And I've written a kids book, I've written little kids books. I mean, I wrote a mid, is it middle
Middle
grade.
grade.
I wrote a middle grade book. Yeah. So I always like to do something different. So I'm writing a mystery with another friend of mine. And so, but I don't want to say too much about that because we're still in the early stages. But that's what's keeping me busy now. And I have another idea for another book, but that's next. So my feeling is I always have another idea for another book
Mhm.
because I can get some information. Like I was in I was in Connecticut recently visiting, and I went to my other favorite bookstore. I have a favorite bookstore in Phoenix. I have a favorite bookstore in Connecticut, and I was just walking around thinking, "Oh, here are some ideas, and here are some ideas." So yeah. So a mystery book is what's next on the list. After, of course, I do this, and the other thing again is more training classes. So I don't have a training class yet on the interview skills, but I will be putting that together soon because I've already had people ask, okay, well, you've got the book, but where can I get that? So that's next on the
So
list.
you have online classes. Where can people find those?
Oh, thank you
And
for
what kind of
asking.
classes are there?
So you can go to careercoffeebreak.com. And the idea for that is in your career, in the time it takes for a coffee break, that I can teach you something. So you can get some ideas. And so there's a communication class there. There's a class on, I'm actually going to be changing some of the classes. There's a class on how to get a salary increase, but I'm going to be changing those pretty soon. But you can go there and find out what the newest class is. And you can also connect with me if you have any questions. On the front page, it says, if you have a comment, you can reach me that way.
So your career coffee break, I think I've seen on LinkedIn that there's a newsletter or
Oh,
something that's posted
thank you.
once a
Thank
week,
you.
maybe, or
Yes.
something.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
once a week, I have a newsletter that goes out and it talks about different topics. And so it could be, I have had a couple of topics on how to interview, but they're short. And
Mhm.
so, it's a page or two. So again, if you go on, you can send me a message. I think I have the link there. We're working on that.
Mhm.
But we'll go ahead and get you on the newsletter. So if you go on the main page, just say interested in the newsletter, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
So Laura Browne, Browne, and it's a LinkedIn newsletter.
So um, you and I wrote a book together called "Help My Company Swipe Left,"
Yes. Mhm.
and we've been talking most of this interview about interviewing,
Mhm.
but there's this whole uh, I don't even know what to call it right now, where there's this thing where so many people are looking for jobs, and
Yeah.
if you're on a paid version of LinkedIn, you
Yeah.
actually get to see how many people have applied for a job, right? And
Oh.
so there's a lot of jobs that I see come across
Mhm.
LinkedIn have 400, 500, eight
Oh,
hundred,
yeah. Yeah.
thousand, 1200
Mhm.
applicants for one opening.
Yeah.
And so, do you have any quick words of wisdom about
Yeah.
if you really love this job or you think you would love this job that's being posted? How do you stand out from
Yeah. And
1,200 others?
thank you. And again, I have people in my family that are looking for jobs now. I have friends. I mean,
Mhm.
lots of people are looking for jobs. And you're absolutely right. The number of people that are looking for certain jobs, it's crazy. So you have to stand out. And the way you stand out is connect with people. So I remember most of the jobs I have, not all of them, but a lot of the good jobs I've gotten in my career is because I knew somebody. So go on LinkedIn, find a bunch of people. If you want to work at X company, find the people at X company
Mhm.
and see who you know who knows them and ask for a connection. And it gets back to a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to bother them or I don't want to do that. But you should do it. Think about it. If somebody you knew connected with you and said, hey, I'm looking for a job at X company. I know you know this person at X company. Would you introduce? Would you do it? Chances are you would. So go ahead and do that. Now, I also, let's say you have nobody. So I have actually sent messages to people at X
Yeah,
company
me
and
too.
said, okay, and said, I love what you're doing and I'm interested. And can you, will you connect with me? And so I've gotten some really good responses from that. So yeah, it's I hate to say it, but in a world where there are 400 people applying
Mhm.
for this one job, and it's very hard to get through, the just sending in your resume. You need to be able to have somebody speak up for you.
Yeah. Well, and especially since now you have all those features where like AI can write your resume and you can write the AI can write the resume based on the keywords in the job profile. But that doesn't
Exactly.
mean that person is any better qualified or even qualified
Yeah.
when you may be, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
It just
But it,
happens to be what AI helped them with.
well, and that's exactly it. I mean, obviously, I'm talking about the interview, but
Yeah.
you have to do a bunch of things to get to the interview. And the other thing I would say, again, loving yourself,
Hmm.
recognize that it is going to take a while, and you're going to have to knock on a bunch of doors, chances
Hmm.
are, to do this. And also think about, okay, well, what are maybe some things that are not first on my list but second on the list? What else could I do? Or even if you're not sure, maybe just one of the things I did early on when I was looking to change jobs is I just connected with people and said, listen, you have a job that I'm interested in. Can I take 15 minutes of your time and just can you tell me about it?
Hmm.
And of course, some people blew me off. Some people were super, super nice. And then I said, after they told me a little bit and what they
Hmm.
liked about their job, how they got it, then I'd say, is there somebody else you could help
Hmm.
me with? And I actually got some connections that were really helpful from that. So you may have to do things that aren't as comfortable as just sending in
Hmm.
another resume. You may have to push yourself a little bit, but that's what may get you the job this time.
My stepdaughter is really good about with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And she's reached out to tons of people on LinkedIn that she doesn't know, or that
Hmm.
she knows somebody who knows them and reaches
Right.
out and asks for the. And
Hmm.
she's set up a lot of informational interviews just to
Exactly.
find out how people like. Do you like working for this company? And I think
Hmm.
I might really like working for this company, but what's it really like? And
Yes.
what's it like being? She just pivoted. She was a television reporter, a political senior political reporter for TV, and she wanted to pivot to work in as an environmental reporter in print journalism. And so she talked to environmental reporters about,
Hmm.
what do they like about their jobs. And so
Hmm.
she was a little discouraged to hear a few of them say, like, the market's horrible for us right now.
Oh,
And
wow.
but yet she still persevered because this is something she really wants to do, right? And so
Hmm.
she the early beginning of next month she starts a new job,
Yay!
doing what she
That's
wants in a
great.
place where she's really excited to work.
Oh, wow.
But it takes that, right? It takes
Hmm.
understanding what you love, what
Hmm.
you intuitively feel like your direction should be,
Hmm.
um, and going after that and
Yes.
looking at all the ways to make that happen.
Hmm.
Um,
And
and
you
being
take
willing to
action.
wait for the flow to come so that it happens without force, I would say.
That's a really good point, because again, just because you're going to make a couple of calls or send a couple of things doesn't mean that this month you're going to get it. You have to start, and it has to have a flow. And yeah, I love doing informational interviews, and I have done. People have reached out to me, and asked for informational interviews, and I think I have always said yes to them.
Mhm.
And I always tell them, like the good part, the bad part, what they should know. And when I was asking for informational interviews, I always said, so what would you tell, like, look back, what would you tell your young self?
Yeah.
Or what would you tell yourself 5 years ago or before you took this job? Or now, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give? And a lot of times people would laugh and go, okay. But I wanted advice, and that's, we have to ask for it. We have to be willing to ask for it.
And you have to stay open, right, to the answers, even if you're not thrilled with the answers.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it's important to hear them.
Well, it sounds like she heard the very negative
Mhm.
answers, but she kept going because
Yeah.
that was her dream, and that's what you have to do. Getting back to, you need to know yourself and you need to know your dream. It's
Mhm.
not everybody else's dream; it's your dream.
And the advice that I gave her when she reached out to me afterwards and said how disappointed and kind of let down she was with that
Yeah.
advice was that you also need to understand that that is that person's current experience
Yes.
or the way that they're filtering that experience, and it may
Hmm.
not be the case for you, right?
That is exactly true. Yeah. That job might not be right for everybody, or it might not be right for them now, or whatever. You have to focus on you.
Yeah, we all go through bad days or bad moments or make bad choices, and
Yeah.
have to course
Well, and
correct.
sometimes we have bad jobs that would be a great job for somebody else. Like if I was going to be an accountant, that would be a really bad job for me, but a great job for somebody else. And if somebody called me, I'd be like, no, do not do this. But maybe it would be the right job for them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very
Mhm.
good point. So, anything else going on in your life that you want to chat
Oh,
about?
uh, those are really
Well,
the big things.
what's one of the biggest lessons you've learned in life?
Oh my gosh, one of the biggest lessons. Um, Really, one of the biggest lessons is probably go for it. That I'm
Okay.
a very I mean, when we talk about, communications, I'm a very sort of, "Let's go step 1, step 2, step 3, I wanna think about this." Somebody was joking with me recently because I said, "I'm gonna look into that." And they're like, "Oh, you're gonna do some research?" Like, "Yeah." Um, so I tend to, like, wanna think, 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 and so my biggest learning is you have to act. You're gonna make mistakes, but if you don't act and if you don't do stuff,
Mm.
then you won't. It will all be theory. And one of the I have above my refrigerator now a sign. It says, "What can I do today that my future self will thank me for?" And I love asking myself that question in the morning. And normally it's not, sit and think some more. Normally it is, make a decision, try
Yeah.
something new, say no to this, say yes to that. Um, because, in 5 years, and 1 year, and 2 years, I'm either going to go, man, I can't believe I didn't do that, or oh, thank goodness that I'm doing. Actually, well, I will give you an example. I just decided today to get solar for my house, which
Okay.
sounds like a no-brainer in Phoenix, Arizona. Um, but I was like, well, I don't know, and should I do it? And I was just like, you know what, just do it, because next year, or actually in August, I'm going to say, oh, thank goodness I did that. Yeah. So go ahead and do it.
Yeah. And I think that if we tend to overthink, right? We do that even if we're in a relationship or with friends that you may think like maybe this isn't working for me, or you just feel like it's not, you don't have enough boundaries or whatever, right? But
Yeah.
when you start thinking, overthinking all of it, then you start doing what you talked about, the people in the job, your client with the job, right? You start making excuses.
Yes. Yes.
And
Hmm.
instead of being like, no, I love myself too much to keep putting up with this BS, or
Hmm.
to keep being taken advantage of, or
Hmm.
to keep being unhappy,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because I won't say what company it was, but at one point, I was very unhappy in a company, and I finally got the guts to quit, because I'm like, you know what? Because they made a major change in a policy, and I thought that was truly unfair for us. And so I quit, and my boss sent me a message saying, "I'm bummed by that." And I thought, "You're bummed by that? You folks are treating us really badly with this new policy." And it made me so happy that I had quit, and it made me think, man, I wish I had quit months before, because, again, there were months and months, and I thought, no, it's okay. I'll make it work. It's fine. And I thought, oh my gosh, life is too short to be
Well,
miserable in a job.
and even his response of "I'm bummed" is like, you
Yeah.
didn't tell me that I'm too good and you don't want to see me go,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
I'm just bummed.
there's
Yeah.
no love being shown to me, right? It's all about
No.
you because you're bummed.
Yeah. You're bummed because you're going to have to fill this spot.
Yeah.
I get that. Oh, poor you. I'm so sorry for you. Yeah, but it was a good example, again, of I had been making excuses,
Yeah.
and I needed to love myself enough. And it was so funny, because I find sometimes that I will make like I'll, worry about a decision, worry about like getting a new job or whatever, and I'll make the decision, and I'll be like, "Oh, I feel the burden of making the
Yeah.
decision." It's very seldom that I go, "Oh, that was a terrible decision." It's more like, "Oh, thank goodness I finally made a decision and I'm moving forward."
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a
And half the
huge
time
burden.
we don't even know the things weighing on us as heavy as it does.
No,
Yeah.
no, no, I
I've
didn't.
been
And
there.
yeah, and again, we have to realize there is something weighing on me. And if now we don't always have, the opportunity to change or
Mhm.
whatever, there are other things going on. But if I have any chance to take something off that burden, then I should do it rather than make excuses.
Words to live by in all areas of our lives, our work lives and our personal lives.
Yeah, our personal lives. Yeah, it's just, oh, there are just so many things, and personal gets mixed up with business, and you start, yeah, yeah. So you again, you have to think about, and I keep talking about taking care of you. So I don't mean it in a selfish way. Obviously, I love my family, I love my friends.
You
I
love your
need,
cats.
I love my cats. Yes, I need to love me first, though, so that I can give the other people the love that they deserve. So I can spend time with my family and friends.
There's one of the yoga teachers I study with always says every single week, remember, you have to fill your own cup first
Yes,
before you can give to anybody else.
yes.
Because if your cup isn't full, there's nothing to give.
You know what? That is a really good way to think about it. That yeah, you have to fill your cup first. And again, I talk to so many people like, but that's selfish. I shouldn't do that. I should no, no, it's not selfish. And I've known people again that they focus on giving to filling everybody else's cup
Mhm.
first, and then there is nothing left, and they're exhausted, and they wonder why they're so tired and stuff. Well, it's because you didn't fill your cup first.
And
So
it's also like the airplane analogy where if you get into a serious situation, you always put your own airbag on before you put it on a kid or somebody who needs
yes,
help.
yeah, that's true. Put
Because
your
you're not going to be
oxygen
able
mask
to
on
if you're the
first.
one passing out to help anybody else.
Yes. You know what? And that's a really good analogy too. Yeah, I forget about that sometimes. Yep, we got to put our oxygen mask on first before
Yeah.
helping others. Hmm.
So, how that to me is part of understanding care, right?
Hmm.
As opposed to taking responsibility for everybody else, right?
Hmm. Yes. Yeah. And
Because and
yeah,
it's good for us to care for other people, but we really shouldn't assume responsibility
yeah.
for everything around us
And it's
at our
really
own
funny.
expense.
Yeah. Because I was thinking about that because I'm a very responsible person. And so there are a lot of people that are like that, that no, I can do this, I can do this. But just because I can do something at work or with
Uh-huh.
my family or friends doesn't mean I should do something.
Yeah,
That when you take all that responsibility, then other people don't have the opportunity to show up the way they should. So,
it's
yeah,
true.
yeah. So we need to give people the gift of being responsible for themselves, and we need to, because we're going to make mistakes. And so I always think that, I mean, unless it's a terrible mistake, we have to make mistakes. We have to make mistakes, because if we don't make mistakes, we don't grow. I mean, I think
Mhm.
in my life, I've certainly made a bunch of mistakes, but without those early mistakes, I wouldn't be where I am now. I remember one time I got laid off from a job, and I was like miserable, and oh my gosh, this is terrible. And I just, I was
Mhm.
in tears. And the next job I got was a job in training that took me to where I am today. And so if I hadn't lost that job, if I hadn't been laid off, I wouldn't be on the path I am today. So I I like looking back and saying that helped me to
Yeah,
be where I am today.
yeah. All of our events, if anything that happens to us, any experience, if we look at it through the lens of what did that teach me,
Hmm.
right? Or
Yes.
what is it teaching me, if it's a
Hmm.
current thing,
Yes.
um, can be so much more beneficial than once we get out of the stuckness of being like, oh,
Yes.
woe is
Well,
me, right?
and it's funny. So when I was thinking before this podcast, what are things I love? And I said I love self development books, because
Mhm.
they've given me ideas how to do that. One of the other things I love is positivity, and I brought something here.
Oh,
So can you see?
the tiger.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this is my little Tigger, and he's near my desk to remind me to keep bouncing. And when I fall, because when I fall, I can bounce back up, and sometimes you bounce back up even higher. So yeah, so that
That's
little guy reminds
beautiful.
me of that. Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really fun.
Nice.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I have to tell you, I didn't bring him, but I also have I have a little dragon, and the little dragon are things I'm scared of. And so he's small.
It's your lizard brain.
It's my lizard brain.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And so he's small, but when I get scared, he gets big, and but the fact that he's sitting there, I can deal with him. And a friend of mine said, "Have a cup of tea with
With your
the
dragon.
scary." have a cup of tea with your dragon. I'm like, oh, I love that, and so we sit and have a cup of tea so I can deal with my fears, because dealing with your fears to me is one of the big things we need to work on.
Definitely teaches you a lot. Yeah,
Yes, yeah. It's uncomfortable teaching. Sometimes it's uncomfortable learning. But you know what? That's what we need to do.
I understand that.
Mhm.
I was speaking at a conference once, or at a school, and I was doing like 6 or 8 workshops, and by the sixth or eighth workshop, with some of the same people in there the whole time,
Yeah.
some guy in the front row all of a sudden said, "Okay, so tell us stuff about yourself that we haven't heard before, that we can't read about you online,
Okay.
and that most people don't know." And yeah, and I looked at him for a split second, and out of my mouth comes words that my brain wasn't even registering that I was saying them. "I have little to no fear." That's what I said in front of a
That
room of
is,
hundreds of people.
oh my
And as
gosh.
soon as it came out of my mouth, I thought, "Is that even true? Like, is that real?"
Wow.
And he said, the guy in the front row was like, "Oh, what? Really?"
Hmm.
And I said, "Yeah, actually, it is true." And he was like, "Oh." And I said, he's like, "I'm afraid of everything." And and I and I said to him, um, what did I went through this quick list. It was like, uh, spiders, snakes, sticky
Speaking in
things.
public.
No, spiders, snakes,
Hmm.
clowns, and sticky things.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yes, absolutely." And I was like, "Oh." And he's like, "You're not afraid of any of those things?" And I said, "No, not heights. No,
You're not afraid of heights? Wow.
no."
Wow.
And it was just the weirdest thing, because it's like, then it started making me think, like, why
Yeah.
am I
Why?
not afraid of those?
Hmm.
And I didn't come up with an answer until very recently.
Yeah.
And I realized that I think it was, an unconscious decision by myself, because my mother is afraid of everything.
Oh, okay.
And so as a child, even, you know, get the bug, take it outside.
Right. Yeah.
Or in her case, she'd be on kill it, kill it. But
Yeah.
um and so I must have made some decision on a subconscious level that I wasn't going to live like that, like
Hmm.
afraid of everything. And yeah, it was
Wow.
strange.
That
'Cause,
that's really impressive.
uh,
And it's
I
also impressive that you realize, because it does sound like that's the reason why that you made that choice.
maybe, or maybe that's just a story I tell myself. But
Yeah, well, yes, we tell ourselves stories,
yeah,
but I love that. And so I'm comparing you to the guy who's sitting in the audience who's afraid of everything,
yeah,
and you, because I know that you have done like all these things that I think are wonderful that really step out of most people's comfort zone. So now I can see why you do that.
I guess. I don't know. Like what? It's not like I skydive or anything. I just think that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
No,
well, like some of the
there
moves
are people that enjoy it. I don't I like to be in a plane. I don't feel any reason to jump out of it into the sky. I don't know. And
well,
it's not a fear
that's a
thing. It's
choice.
just
That's not
yeah,
being scared. Yeah,
yeah.
but I mean, you've moved different places. You've done different
Oh yeah.
jobs. You've done different projects. You've written books. You've pushed yourself to these different limits. And now I see why you've done that, instead of just sort of staying the safe and narrow,
Oh yeah. Safe and
trail.
narrow doesn't appeal.
But for some
I
people,
feel
safe and
like
narrow does appeal.
freedom is one of my biggest soul qualities. So if I do
Ah.
things that feel free to me,
Mm-hmm.
freeing. It may not feel free to somebody else, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's, I can go zip line in Costa Rica, and I live with a husband who owns a snake, and
Yeah.
yeah.
I
um,
should say snakes don't bother me that much. I just
well,
don't want
ours
to
is
own
little.
one.
I mean, he's a
Yeah.
corn snake. His
Yeah.
head's as big as my thumb. I mean, he is 2.5 feet long, but he's skinny.
Yeah. No, it's just when I find one
Yeah.
in my backyard, then it
Oh,
bothers me a
yeah.
little
Well,
bit. Yeah, because that's not necessarily friendly. Yeah, but
it
going
might
back
be
to,
be friendly. It just you happen to be encroaching into its home.
That is true. I did not think about it like that. But when you think about it, interesting, you said freedom.
Mhm.
So a lot of people, that's not something that they value
No,
so
not at
much.
all. Mhm.
Right. And so that makes you different and lets you stand out and lets you do things that other people like, no, I don't think so. That's too scary.
Yeah, that's might be a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
It certainly is allowed my career to be as it is, where it's like
Yeah,
not afraid to take on anything, pretty much anything. For the most
exactly.
part, once in a while you get a little bit of imposter syndrome, but then I work through that and I'm like, that's we're going to get rid of that again. What are we doing?
That's really funny. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, but freedom. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I never really think about that.
yeah. So, any favorite quotes about love that you know of?
Well, yeah. So actually, I think about actually I'll give you two. So I think about there's one from Brene Brown. I love Brene Brown. I mean, she's awesome. Um, I now see how owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing that we will ever do. So I really I
And
love that. So again, it brings the
yeah,
bravery in. But I also there's another one supposedly from Buddha. Um, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. And
aw,
isn't that lovely?
yeah,
And to me, it's like, yeah, because again, we focus our time and energy on we love our kids, we love our
mhm,
parents, we love our spouses, we love our friends, which we should be doing. But it's getting back to imposter syndrome, but we deserve some of that love and that time and energy. And so that one just sort of calms me down a
I
little
would
bit.
like to add to that that it's
What?
not like you're deserving it just because you are,
Yes.
not because you had to do anything to
No.
get get that
Yes.
deserve, right?
And but that's really key
It's because
because
you just are. Period. You're
yes.
here. I
Otherwise, it gets to imposter syndrome. But I don't
yeah,
deserve it because of no. I deserve it because I am here and I am
yeah.
me. Yes.
I just
Yeah.
before this call, I was a guest on a podcast we recorded, and I guess it's coming out like in August, but the podcast is called Created Worthy, and its whole
Oh,
purpose is that you are born like not perfect's bad word, but you're born worthy, you're born deserving,
yeah.
and that's it. Period. Right? It's
Oh,
so you you deserve love and self love because you are.
that's really sweet. Yeah. Yeah. But and I love that, and I think we need
Mhm.
more of that
Yeah.
because the messages that we get barraged with are counter to that,
Mhm.
that you don't deserve it, you don't deserve love, you don't have anything, you shouldn't have that. I mean, all of the
Yeah.
things. And so then we start saying these things to ourselves instead of realizing, no, we deserve these things just because of
Yeah.
who we are, not what we have done, not what family we are from, none of those things, but
Mhm.
that we are here.
Yeah, if you could love yourself as much as your pet loves you, we'd all be in much better places in
Oh,
life,
if I could
right?
love myself half as much as my pet loves me.
Yeah, yeah,
That maybe
exactly.
maybe that's a new quote that I will put
Yeah.
up.
So, you had, as a way of showing love to our listeners, you have
Yes.
offered a discount code for
Yes.
the Interview Speak book,
Yes.
and it's a steep discount code you've
Yeah,
offered,
like
45% off, I think.
45% off.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
and
we
so
will include that in the notes of this
perfect.
show for anybody who
Yes,
wants it.
that would be great. Yeah,
Thank
because you
you
can
so
get the
much.
online oh, you're welcome. You can get the online version, the paperback version, or both.
Mhm,
So, yeah, that would be great because I want to show appreciation and love
mhm.
for the listeners, and I would be
Yeah.
happy to help them get their next job, the job that they really want and love.
And people can reach you through LinkedIn,
They can reach me
through
through LinkedIn, through, Career Coffee Break. They can send me a message through there, so either one.
good. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to
Oh,
be on our
Jill,
show.
it was wonderful to see you. You are absolutely amazing, and I just love what you're doing with this, showing more love and just bringing no, I just think it's a wonderful idea, and it's something that we really, really need right now, so I was happy to talk to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.